One of the big issues facing this industry has been the issue of payments. How do we get fiat cash into the crypto world? How do we get our crypto, turn it back into fiat, ladies and gentlemen? We are going to have a panel that's going to get into that, but to set up this panel, to enlighten us, to put everything in the right frame of mind, we are going to invite somebody who for 6 years, which makes him like a grandfather in this industry, don't let his good, his handsome, youngish good looks fool you. For 6 years, he has been working with exchanges to help them to bridge this divide. We would like to welcome to the stage now from Worldpay. And if you don't know Worldpay is like the biggest company that you transact with every day and you don't even know. You're going to find out a little bit about it from Carbreros. He is the global eComm digital asset sales executive. He's going to come and talk about the work that he's been doing in that space to set up our panel. Che, are you ready? He's ready. Come on up. Bienvenidos. Hey, all right. Thank you.
That was a great introduction. I'll pay you later for that, Andrew. Thanks. So hello, everyone. Again, my name is Che Carbreros. I am coming out here from San Francisco to talk to you guys about first what Worldpay is, what we do in the crypto space as well, and if we've got some time, what we're looking at doing in the future. So let's just jump into this. So first of all, I am part of a dynamic duo here that's here. My colleague, Micah Kirshner, he is somewhere in the audience here, and later on we'll be fielding questions over here by the NexChange sign after the panelist discussion. But he's a senior sales executive like myself. Been in the payment space for over 18 years, so he's going to be a good person for you guys to field all the questions for, and then I'll just be the person in the background saying hi to everyone, all right? Andrew gave me a good introduction, so let's just jump into what is Worldpay and what is it that we do. So Worldpay is the largest payments provider in the world. What does that mean? We're talking about your traditional fiat currency payment methods, credit cards, debit cards, and of course there's hundreds of local payment methods out there that many of you might be using around the globe. We process close to 40 billion or so transactions a year. That is, at least from our last data, about $1.7 trillion a year. So a lot of payments run through our systems. We have a lot of very large clients in multiple verticals that do very heavy transactions, and Worldpay is the back engine for all of that. All right. Number one in global e-commerce, number one in the US, in the UK, and again, largest around the globe. We are in 146 different countries. We offer over 127 local currency methods that you can offer for your customers. And of course, we've got about 300 local payment methods that you guys can use as well. What does that look like visually? This is pretty much what our coverage map looks like when you're talking about your traditional payment methods like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and then some of your local or more regional methods like JCB, et cetera. Only a few markets we're not in, and those are your UN sort of sanctioned countries that most of us can't play in anyways. But on top of that, I had mentioned the 300 or so local payment methods. What does that look like around the globe? This is a sample size here of the local payment methods that are also part of what Worldpay processes. Now, when you look at all of these payment methods as well as all the other coverage that you just saw, you get all of that through Worldpay through a single integration into our gateway. So coming into our gateway, you can go into the 146 countries we were talking about, and you can pick any of these different methods that you'd like without having to worry about basically developing or coding into every single one of them. Right? Who do we do this for? This is just a small sample size of some of the companies that we work with. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of them on here, including Coinbase up on the left there, and help build their credit card offering. There we go. All right, so the big point of what we want to talk about today here is, you know, from the 5+ years that I've been in this business, and from all of the discussions that Micah and I have had with these large exchanges, you have a big problem when it comes to how do you get people to put fiat onto an exchange, right? Obviously, all of you out here are you know, very interested in the space. You're either working in the space or you're excited about the technology. So for many of you, you will find those ways to actually get on the platform. But for your average consumer, you know, the everyday person who's still trying to figure out what Bitcoin is, they do not know, they are not very happy with the ways to put fiat on now, right? Usually it's a bank transfer or it's an international wire or something. It requires a lot of pain, takes 5, 7+ business days to actually get money in. Usually just deters a lot of your average consumers out there, right? You know, they want a seamless kind of way to get into this space. They want to test the market, what we found. We're talking about retail consumers, right? Not your institutional investors or what have you. But what they want is a way that they can use one of their traditional payment methods to maybe explore this new technology and to get into the space, right? So for what we do, of course, being in the payments processing space, having cards there is probably the #1 way to get your customers to test this market. They'll usually come onto a platform. If there's an option to take a card, they would load up their card, buy 100, 200 USD worth of crypto, and then what we found throughout that time is they would do it more than once. They would actually start to adopt this technology, make a couple purchases throughout the time. As they stay onto your platform, then they turn around and start using other ways to send fiat on, bigger amounts, right? They also want local currency offerings. A lot of exchanges, you know, for instance, if you're a European exchange and you're trying to offer your services in APAC, you're going to turn off a lot of customers when you're only offering your services in, say, Euro or GBP or dollar. You want to have your local currency methods, or else most likely you're going to see customers abandon the purchase. That's a big issue there. So what we've done for the past 5 years is help, you know, large crypto exchanges put a credit card offering on there, debit card, and as well as all these local payment methods to actually get some adoption into this space. Let's see. So what we've seen, you know, we call it card to crypto. Got to have a catchy phrase, right? And that was the one our marketing execs chose. What we've seen, though, with, you know, I'm going to go on the bottom right there. Our global engagement team, what happens is when a customer comes on board to Worldpay, they get a dedicated team. They get a relationship manager, which is something I used to do for 5 years at Worldpay. They get a tech support. They get a corporate, you know, operations support. And then we have various departments that specialize in things like maximizing authorization rates, limiting fraud, things like that. What that has done for our crypto exchanges is when we've brought on credit cards, debit cards as an offering for them, they've immediately saw a high double-digit uptick in new retail customer activity. So that's new customers coming onto your platform. That is existing customers using or transacting more because now they have different payment methods that they can use. But you did get a large adoption here of customers wanting to come in this space. And they actually did not leave. They stayed on through the bear market. You know, of course, volumes go down, but they've been very, very high, anywhere from, you know, 8, 9 to 10 figures a month in new turnover. We also found that when you use a Worldpay model in the way we set you up, we've gotten very high approval rates for our customers, high 70s to mid 80% acceptance rates when you're talking about our crypto exchanges. And of course, you know, it allows exchanges to also, you know, when you have customers that are staying on your platform, you can also market, your various products and what have you, and they start to use those as well. All right, I've got about a minute or so I want to also talk about one last piece. We just spent the last 10 minutes talking about the challenges of actually putting fiat onto an exchange into crypto. But what about the other side, right? What about all the customers that now want crypto back to fiat, back into their wallets? What does that look like? For Worldpay, we've had a product now for years. It was primarily for our gambling and gaming merchants, but we are looking to roll this out for our crypto exchanges this year, but we call it Bank Out. And what that really is right now, I think a lot of the exchanges, what they have to do is when they need to pay out their customers, it's going to be in the form of a bank transfer, or it's going to be some sort of an international wire. It's going to take 5 to 7 business days for a customer to get their funds, and it's going to cost a ton of money, right? One of the byproducts of what we do as a big payments provider is we've got bank accounts all over the globe. What does that mean for an exchange? Rather than them sitting there sending out wires to all these customers, they send Worldpay a flat file. We take those payment instructions that you're looking to give for your customers, and then rather than send wires out, we'll use one of our local banks in that region and do a local bank transfer, which means that customers get their funds within 1 to 2 business days. It's usually about 88% cheaper than what a traditional wire looks like, and of course it makes the user experience a million times better, right? And of course all of these topics, I kind of rushed through them because of the 10 minutes I've got here, but again, we'll be out here after the panelist presentation. Look for me or Micah, and also, please take down all our contact information. The QR code is my WeChat. We've got Telegram, LinkedIn, whatever you want. But please reach out to us. We wholeheartedly believe that we have the superior product out there and would love to tell you why. So with that, shall we move into the panelist piece?
You've done your duty. You can have a seat now. You've earned it.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Che, thank you very much.
Where did I put
Che
that
Carbreros
water?
at the forefront of the revolution of bringing fiat into the crypto system. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, have a seat.
Appreciate it.
All right, we got a couple of people that were going to come up and join him to be part of the conversation. Number one, I'd like to welcome your moderator today. He is Dwight van Diem. He is the CIO and head of payments within the BCW Group, a company that is doing management consulting and helping everybody from major corporations to big startups to help implement their DLT and blockchain solutions. How's that, Dwight?
Perfect, thank you.
Not bad. Am I hard?
Very good.
All right, good. I'm in. We also have coming up on stage a homegrown superstar of the blockchain world, one of the earliest pioneers in cross-border payment solutions using blockchain. We welcome the co-founder and CEO of BitSpark, George Harrap, to the stage. George, come on up and enlighten us. Thank you very much. With that, we will leave you in Dwight's capable hands. Fire away.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. So good morning, everyone. It's good to see a full house here. And thanks for the presentation there, Che. It's good to see enterprise-level companies trying to solve some of the friction pain points that we have here. So to come to the topic of the discussion, obviously, around disruption in payments, I'd like to get started by talking about the fact that, obviously, we've had blockchain DLTs around for a while. We're starting to see enterprises come into the space, but also startups create disruptive business models. And I'd like to start with you, George, and talk about, obviously, on the remittance side. I mean, you've got, the existing incumbent would charge anywhere in the likes of 10% to do a transfer. So how are you guys interacting with this space?
Yeah, so we've been around, we're actually the oldest crypto remittance company. So we've been around almost 5 years now. We started off in Hong Kong doing remittances from Hong Kong to the Philippines. That's a big corridor. There's a lot of people sending small value transactions. If you go on a Sunday to central Hong Kong, you'll see that there's 10,000 people in one building sending money around the world. So, it's a really pertinent thing, especially in the APAC region. So often how it works, in the global remittance world, everything is cash, right? Like 95% of the $700 billion which flows through the remittance world is cash. Then there's about another 700 billion, which is the sort of unregulated market of people calling each other up and doing netting of payments and these sorts of things. So it is a big market, but if you have a bank account, in many of these countries, 20% of the population has a bank account, right? So having a bank account, doing bank transfers in remittance countries, generally not that useful. You have to service cash. So, what we came at it was that, we could go out there and try and build a product for the individuals and say, okay, we're going to onboard, we're going to be like every other remittance company, we're going to go and try and find all these individuals, or we could be friends with the money transfer companies. And what we've built is a product that essentially allows money transfer companies to send money, cash in, cash out via the physical money remittance shops. And behind the scenes, it's actually using crypto to settle those payments. So as far as the customer is concerned, they don't have to know about crypto or blockchains or private keys or blah, blah. In fact, they don't care. They just want to send the money. And that's essentially, what we've built. And we're about a third of the cost of every other competitor out there to send the money. And it's cash in, cash out. So what's not to love?
Yep. And I mean, obviously that's key to it as well. It's just creating that back-end sort of new infrastructure piece that I guess drives the cost down. But for the actual consumer, it's more about just a frictionless, easy user experience. Very, very interesting. And then, Che, on your side, I mean, I guess you touched on it a bit with your presentation, but obviously startup, but existing enterprise. How do you see yourself fitting into this new disruption that we're seeing?
Yeah, great. It's a great question. When you think about it, we are a payments provider, payments processor. To us, is payments fiat? Is it crypto? It's payments for us. And I think what we did when we decided to sit down and think about how we wanted to be in this new space, when you mentioned disruptive, it's, do we want to be disrupted, or do we want to be part of the disrupting process, right? Obviously, we chose being part of the disrupting process. I think that, this is going to be, Worldpay feels like this is going to be the direction of the future. So how do you get that adoption going now? And that's when, we use the methods we have now, which is let's get a customer who's most likely got a debit card in their wallet, get them onto a platform and start to experience this new technology.
And so, you touched on it a little bit there. So in my opinion, disruption is one thing, but like mass adoption is another. So what are you guys both doing within your various businesses in order to move it from just being disruptive to also mass adoption?
Yeah, I think that if you go out there and say, I built this cool product, everyone should go use it, you're just like everybody else, right? Everybody else is fighting to try and send payments better and faster and cheaper and so on. So how do you get the mass adoption? That is the question. And I think, what we found was that you've got to partner with the existing payment rails, and it's probably the same with Worldpay, is that the existing payment rails, they already exist in those countries, right? Like, you're not going to displace the local payment mechanism in 180 countries and currencies around the world. So it makes much more sense to try and work with the existing payment mechanism. And if you do that, then you're able to get that mass adoption and be able to give people a product which is something they use every day. Maybe they use the Octopus card in Hong Kong to pay for stuff, or maybe in a different country it's something entirely different. You've got to be able to service those local payment methods and be able to work with the existing providers to do that. So I think that when we're talking about mass adoption, if you start talking about blockchain, and nobody cares about that. Yeah. People care about what the business application is. Is it faster, cheaper in order to send my money to X location? Yes or no? Okay, it is. Great. Let's do it. So I think that, and to do that, you've got to work with the payment rails. But using crypto behind the scenes in order to settle those payments, it's not so much just using a database I owe you some money, you owe me some money. Let's use a blockchain database between us to increment and decrement this. If you actually buy a thing which has a value, like a Bitcoin, and I give it to you, then I don't owe you any money anymore. It's done, settled. There's no further T plus 3 days from a bank, to settle that payment. So I think that this is really the disruption, is to be able to settle things faster, and that's what we see in the remittance space. So working with local payment methods, using crypto to do those settlements, and making it something that the customers don't really have to understand. They can just go and use it, and they don't have to think about it too much.
Correct. I mean, I absolutely agree. It's all about getting it done and getting it done quickly. I mean, I think, Che, you touched on this a bit as well, saying that within your side of the business, it's a much quicker product solution for the onboard, offboard method, correct?
Right, and you know, to answer the question about disruption, right? Right now it looks like it's very mainstream. Oh, okay, let's put cards on there and customers can make purchases and own crypto. Actually, 5 years ago when I started this, the big card brands weren't going to process for crypto exchanges. We actually had to write business cases and then leverage sort of our executive powers that we have with the card brands on the executive levels to pitch why this is something that we should be doing. That allowed us to, that was the first part of the disruption, right? You're already kind of going in against the traditional methods that didn't know if they wanted to do this, but we write the business case, they go ahead and let it pilot for, you know, some small exchanges to see what this looks like, and then they left us alone. After that, when we started to build those products for our exchanges, you saw that massive adoption was there, right? You saw I had a slide up there that said, you know, there's less than 2% of the population that actually owns crypto assets. You know, the other 98% probably do have a card in their wallet and they are willing to explore this space. So it blew up a lot larger than we expected to, and I think that scared a lot of the traditional banks and payment methods, but having a big acquirer like us in that space to help kind of send that message to, you know, to the card brands, I think is a very powerful tool to help for that adoption and make that disruption not look as painful as, you know.
I mean, I guess that leads me into what I wanted to sort of touch on next, because obviously with the disruption and the adoption pieces of it also comes the need to be compliant or looking at regulations, especially when you're entering new markets. So, I mean, maybe we can start with you, George, and sort of some of the pain points or the interactions that you would have at, say, like a government level or a regulator level as you're moving into Southeast Asia or more recently into Africa.
Yes, I mean, the pain point of dealing with regulators is dealing with regulators. That is the pain point. So, yeah, fundamentally, pretty much nowhere other than a handful of countries have actual crypto regulation. And generally, it specifies a very sort of narrow band of what you can do. Nobody's really done too much with that, to be honest, right now, other than probably the Philippines has been very well, very well recepted. Yeah, as I said, the last 5 years, there's been remittance payments going to the Philippines. It was such a big deal that the central bank started making a cryptocurrency remittance license.
It's a big part of their GDP as well.
It's like $26 billion comes into their economy every year from remittances, and that's direct to the person. It's not, government to government payments. So, it's very beneficial. So I think that, some countries do realize that this is something that is important. Although I would say that, part of the reason why we're in Hong Kong and why pretty much every crypto exchange is in Hong Kong is that the government doesn't take a hands-on approach to anything. They don't regulate anything. There's no crypto reg here. There probably won't be any crypto reg here anytime soon. The proposed thing from the SFC is opt-in, institutional only, doesn't really apply to anybody. So, and that's why people are here, is because it's easy to set up. You don't have to spend $1 million. Like in the US, every single state, you have to spend much money to go and do stuff. You just come here and then you start doing stuff. You start selling a product, you start doing something. So I would say that is the best method to really grow, a local business scene of local companies here that are doing it. It's not going to be regulatory led. And there are some sort of countries that are trying to do the crypto reg, but it's like, oh, we're trying to attract ICOs or fundraising. And it's like, well, yeah, sure, you could go to this country and do your fundraising, or you could just incorporate into BVI and do it, and you don't have to really worry about anything. So I would say that crypto reg yet to be determined on if it's too useful. The likely outcome is that governments will add crypto to their existing regs. So, for example, money transfer licenses, they'll just add crypto as a thing which comes under that. And then, if you want to do crypto trading or something like that in that jurisdiction, you'll just get a money transfer license. That's pretty much how it works in most countries in Southeast Asia.
Okay. And then obviously, Che, on your side with it all, it's probably less about government and more about sort of other stakeholders in the payment system. So how has it been with your side to sort of help implement cards to crypto?
Well, I think it's a mix also with government, and I'll tell you, so George, he laid it out very well on the crypto side, and what's interesting is when you're looking on the traditional payment method side, you saw the slide I had of all the global coverage. It looks nice and clean, but when you actually look at traditional payment processing, the rules and regulations are completely different in every different country. So you have to adhere to rules and regulations of all of these different countries and also adhere to the regulations that are on the crypto side of this, right? So having like advisors or payment provider that can actually navigate you through the complexities of the traditional side and on the crypto side, I think is what the big challenge we deal with all the time. And you know, through the 5 years that I've been doing this, you've learned a lot along the way and how to sort of navigate past those after some time. So, you know, until we get some solid regulation in place, it's going to look like this for a while, right? And so the goal is going to just continue to be to play in both worlds while adhering to the regulations that are very set and strict on one side and still trying to be formed and figured out on the other side.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, I don't think it'll ever be one regulation to rule it all, though.
No.
Like nobody's going to agree on everything, right?
Exactly.
So there's 180 countries. They all have different opinions on different stuff. So they're probably never going to agree. There's going to be some places that do it well and some places that don't. The places that do it well, people will go to and flock to, and the people that don't, you know, people won't go there and flock to. So I think it's going to be a sort of jigsaw puzzle of different places with different regulations for a while.
Yeah, definitely very difficult to try and manage all those as well.
Yeah.
So in the interest of time, I'd like to sort of finish it up with maybe a view from each of you on what you're doing within your own business and where you see the payments industry moving in, say, 2019, 2020.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to service the cash in, cash out in as many countries and currencies as possible. For the last 4.5 years, almost 5 years now, we've been using Bitcoin to send remittance payments. That's pretty much how everybody does it because Bitcoin is the only one with local fiat liquidity. If I send Bitcoin to the Philippines, I can get Filipino pesos at quite a large liquidity, whatever you want really, you know, in order to fulfill that payment. However, if a customer comes to me from Sri Lanka and says, hey, I'm a money transfer company in Sri Lanka, really like your service, can I sign up? I can't actually send Bitcoin to Sri Lanka and get like a rupee in return. There is no liquidity, there's no market, there's no broker, and that's a big remittance country. So I have to say no, which kind of sucks. So, you know, how we're solving this is with the emergence of stablecoins, and I think that really is the way forward for us. So by the end of the year, we want to have 180 different stablecoins in 180 different currencies, and they will all be trustless stablecoins, not the trusted stablecoins. There's a difference between the two, just quickly. Trusted is, I'm a company X, right? You deposit $1 into my bank account, I give you 1 coin worth $1. And I have to prove to you that I'm a legitimate person because I have a bank account, it's audited, blah, blah. I have to show you all of this. Sure, you could go around that path, but then if I want to service Sri Lanka, I have to physically go to Sri Lanka, get a bank account, open it, be a money transfer company, you know, all this kind of stuff. It takes a year to do. I'm not going to do that in every country and currency. So the best place to do that is really use a trustless stablecoin. And BitShares has been around for almost 4.5 years. MakerDAO is another one, whereby instead of the collateral being at the bank and trusting a company to hold the collateral, it's on the blockchain. And it's crypto as collateral in a smart contract. So nobody owns it, controls it, nobody can take it away. You can do it from any country, any currency, anywhere in the world. So I think that is the path forward. And using these crypto collateralized stablecoins for all of these different world currencies, then it gives us the ability to be able to service Sri Lanka, because then I am able to buy a bit rupee, let's say. And that bit rupee holds the value of a rupee. So if that money transfer company signs up to our service and he's dishing out rupee in return because people sending remittances, he gets rupee in our system and it's held as rupee, has the same value. So I think that that's certainly the way forward for us.
Sounds like you're going to have a very busy year ahead of you if you're going to onboard 180 of them. And then how about yourself, Jay? What's Worldpay going to be doing throughout 2019, 2020 to help push more disruption in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things, obviously, is to continue to perfect the onboarding piece of this to make the frictionless piece much easier for exchanges to board new retail clients. The offboarding piece, the bank out I was talking about that's already in place for our gambling and gaming merchants is the goal is to roll that out for our crypto exchanges so that they can partake in the payout process there. Obviously, you know, we talked about the 300 or so payment methods that we offer now, right? When you look at a lot of these new crypto assets and the way they're going to be used for remittance, to us, those look like local payment methods. And so I think the goal from there as well would be, okay, you know, how do we screen which ones are going to be the right ones going forward? But, you know, we would like to add crypto assets as payment methods as well. So that's more of a longer term play, but for now, the focus is still on onboarding that fiat much easier and then offboarding it in the same way. So I think that'll keep us busy for the next, you know, 18 months or so as we continue to board a lot of the large exchanges and help them navigate through this whole space. And that'll be the play.
All right, sounds very interesting. Okay, I guess with that, I think we can wrap it up. I think Andrew said he'd give me a beer if I put us in under time so they can get back on track. So I hope everyone learned quite a bit about these two companies and sort of what they're doing to sort of disrupt the space. Definitely keep an eye out for both of them. They're doing a lot to bring frictionless payments to the space, so it's very exciting. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dwight, for kicking things off, running our panel for us. You did an absolutely great job. I love working with BCW. We've had a chance to work with these guys on a few different occasions. Always love working with them. Super awesome. There we go. Big smiles for, don't look at me, look at the camera. There you go.